Put it that way. We've both been here since the 70s. We've both seen a lot of changes. We both never dreamed it would take COVID to make more people come to Carrabassett than all the decades we've been working so hard to try and get people to come here. So that's a bit of an irony over what the past year has been like. But now we're looking at another summer, and there's things to talk about.
I was hoping that we would not be sitting here again in May having the same discussion that Andy and I had a year ago about the posting of the lands, the closing of the trails on all the Penobscot Nation's land in Carrabassett Valley. And unfortunately, here we are again.
Even worse with the carriage road now closed.
Yeah, the carriage road was, that kind of fell through a donut hole because they had already issued us a permit for the carriage road last year. But yeah, now the carriage road is closed. The narrow gauge to the south to the Jones lot is closed. It's difficult. And just to go back briefly, a year ago, there was a bill before the legislature that the Penobscot Nation and the Passamaquoddies and the other tribes had put forth to the legislature. We didn't find out about it until the 11th hour, quite frankly. It started in March, and we found out about it in, I think it was right about now, late May, June. And what did happen because of COVID is the legislature stopped meeting. So the bill went over to this next legislature, which brought over a new bill, which in many ways was even more restrictive, in my opinion, than the first bill. But we were talking all through the winter. We talked, or we tried to talk, and so there we were again at odds with the Penobscots. Which, just a little bit of history, in 1980, the Maine Indian Settlement, or the Maine Indians Claim Act, and then the Maine Indian Settlement Act were passed in 1980. It went on for 8 years, from 1972 to 1980. And at the time, it was pretty much a landmark decision which gave back to the nations land, that it was specified land in the unorganized territories. Alder Stream up in Big Jam and 40 other parcels of land that were made available. What happened here in Carrabassett Valley, we're a town and a municipality. So what happened is Dead River, the Penobscots wanted Alder Stream, which is up in Eustis. But Dead River Company that owned that land and owned this land in Carrabassett would not sell one without the other. And I use the word sell. What it really was the federal government ended up giving tax breaks to the large corporations to deed their land over, which is fine. That was a win-win, and that was a good thing. But what happened was, and the Implementing Act specifically stated it, is that if land that was given to the nation was put into an organized town or city, that it would have to come before the voters of that town before it could be put into federal trust. And federal trust is a vehicle that really allows the nations to self-govern. And they are seeking sovereignty, which is understandable. The problem in our case is that we were like that little tiny little thing that was specifically earmarked that only happened because Dead River said you have to take it all or we're not going to sell you some. So here we sit. That being said, that's 40 years ago. And for 40 years, we've had a pretty good relationship. Like any marriage, any relationship, we've had ups and downs, but we've shared things. And, basically we built a lot of bike trails on their lands, and they approved of that. The carriage road, which we spoke of earlier, is the only access out to Flagstaff. And coincidentally, the main access to the Bigelow Preserve, which is public lands. And last year, again, we already had a permit. It was a yearly permit. We had usage. This year, we have no usage. So the carriage road at this point and all the lands in Carrabassett Valley are posted to be closed. We have tried to continue this discussion. We've dealt with their ambassador, Molly and Dana, who's been responsive. We had one Zoom meeting with Chief Francis, who's the chief of the Penobscots, and Molly and Dana, the ambassador. And we felt that we gained some ground, that they were going to discuss it. That was back in March. It turned out nothing ever became of it. And here we are now almost in June, and we've sent letters. We've gone and testified at the legislature for the new bill. It's Bill 1568, which got replaced by Bill 1626 at the 11th hour when we were there about 2 weeks ago. Anyway, long story short, it got tabled by the legislature. And we're not really sure why it got tabled by the legislature. In a lot of ways, it was more prohibitive than the bill that came a year ago. It had more things in there that basically took away all the states' rights to fish and game, water rights, hunting rights, and Department of Environmental Protection, the EPA. So the governor was clearly not in favor of it either. So it's been tabled till the next legislature, which is after January of this coming year. How can it be January of this coming year? It'd have to be January of 2022. So there's a long-winded introduction into where we're at. We continue to discuss. We've made numerous requests, and I know that this is a sovereignty issue for them, but we have not gotten any definitive conversations that indicate why the land is posted, why the roads and the permits not issued. This affects the ATV club, it affects the snowmobile club, and it affects all the UT trails, which is throughout the state of Maine. So it conflicts with a lot of things. And again, I will emphasize, it was through their generosity that we were able to build these trails and use those trails. So we're just trying to get to that point where we can see if we can pull that out of what they're proposing for sovereignty and have some type of a longer term agreement.